Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to February's Town Hall. I hope everybody was able to get in warm and dry. This evening we should be relatively a straightforward meeting, not a lot of stuff, at least on my plate. I'll be happy to hear all the things that you have, but I don't have a lot on mine. The first thing I would like to do is apologize for the scheduling issues that we're having, and I need to explain why it has become an issue. In 8 months of every year, the last Thursday of the month happens to be the fourth Thursday of the month. But for 4 of those months, it's the 5th Thursday of the month. And this happens to be one of those months. So I apologize for the confusion on the scheduling, but town halls are supposed to be scheduled the last Thursday of every month. Just to clarify on that, and I apologize for the confusion it may have caused the Conservative Club. It was definitely unintentional. So we got a bunch of things to talk about tonight that are short. When I say a bunch, there's not a lot. There it is. We got it all. So I want to talk a little bit about trash, and I've appreciated all the people who have sent me individual emails expressing their opinion one way or the other on trash pickup and what's necessary for the community and how that's working. I would like to suggest that to continue to do that, we still have some time. We're still looking at what our options are. And I would also like to suggest that at the end of the day, I am fairly certain there will be no good answer. Either way I go. And so we're going to do our best to find and understand the best way that we can do this for the community as a whole. And for those people on either side that are inconvenienced, all I can do is apologize. I use this saying a lot, and my staff have now tend to repeat it. I even have the board repeating it. And that is, I must, in my responsibilities to the community, manage to the 10,000, not to the 10. And that sometimes is not a pleasant task. And, but I wanted to stress that that's the goal here, and that we still are looking at trash and the issues. And by the way, if any of you missed the dumpster fire we had, no, it's not a dumpster fire. They had a truck catch on fire, and they had to dump their trash down in Mialacqua, and it was picked up the next morning. But that is, interestingly enough, a common problem, and they're never quite sure whether somebody put something flammable in their trash, or if the combination of what one person put in their trash mixed with the combination of somebody else's stuff in their trash that caused it. But anyway, they had a small fire that they had to dump their trash into a cul-de-sac. Fortunately, there was only one home on that cul-de-sac, but they were able to get it picked up. Okay, whosever emergency it is, figure it out. There we go. Okay, moving on. Also, this is more informational, and I'm sure everybody has an opinion, which I'll be happy to hear tonight too as well. But in terms of dogs at the Tellico Village facilities, if any of you would like to express your opinions on that one way or the other, please put in a help spot. And if you are not familiar with doing help spots, come see either Beth or Mitzi or myself, and we can kind of take you there. But the help spot allows us to accumulate the data, as opposed to anecdotally saying, well, I got a lot of these that were this way, and I got a lot of those that were that way. This allows us to say factually, we got 47 on this side and 147 on this side, or whatever the number might be. And it allows us to get an accurate understanding. And I will say, anecdotally on this topic, one of the items that was sent in along with that made the comment, why don't we vote more on things within the community? And I say this in all sincerity. You have once a year the opportunity to vote for your community, and that is when you elect board members. And in that process, you are voicing your opinion. But here's the gotcha. So far, only 40% of the community voices their opinion. So it is hard for me in my position and for my staff to really understand what is the majority of the community's opinion, because we never get it. And I would encourage you, as we move forward and as this year goes along and there's another board election please vote. Please be a part of that. Please vote your opinion, because our community is set up and designed by its governing documents to be managed by a 7-member board. And that is your voice. And that's the opportunity to really extend that and get it across to the community and to the board members and to the staff, what you'd like. So please think about that as we move forward. And also, on a completely side note of that voting issue, please get out and vote for all your local and state representatives and state seats that are open and local seats that are open. It's one of those areas that you actually do have a say, and your vote individually actually does count. I admit that I am somewhat ambivalent about the Electoral College, but in terms of locally speaking, this is where you actually can lay down your vote and it actually count and make a difference. Okay, last on my updated list is several people have brought up the question, I don't know how good you can see this from out there, but there was a concern that people, individuals, not clubs, not organized groups, but individuals, didn't have the ability to schedule a room. 5 ladies get together and want to play Mahjong or something else, and they're not part of a club or not anything else, and they were just looking for a place to play. You have that ability as a homeowner to go ahead and schedule a room here in one of the facilities we have. This particular process, if you look, and I know this is not going to work in terms of being able to show it to you, but this page is a page on our website, Tellico Village Facility Scheduling. And if you look at the second option down, we just picked one of the facilities, which happens to be Chota. By the way, we appear to be on schedule to open Chota around March 5. That's the good news in that regard. So you can go there and choose that. And then under that, you can pick a specific room within that facility and choose that and go in and set up a time and reserve it. And if I understand it correctly, when you look at that calendar, it'll show you where other people have reserved it and which days and all that above, so you aren't blindly trying to reserve something that somebody else has already reserved. But as individuals, I just wanted everybody to know, this is not, you don't have to have a secret handshake and be a member of this or that or the other thing to be able to reserve a room. You just have to go online and do it. You can, any homeowner has that capability. Okay, a couple other things. Let's see, we talked about that already. Well, I lied. What y'all got? That's where I'm at now. Wait, we got a question coming up here. Yep.
Is this on? I'm going to ask Simon Bradbury to actually address the Chota room opening. We have a late-breaking update, and they have a plan for the opening date, and that has actually changed from March the 5th to March the 11th. It's a Monday.
Perfect.
So,
there we go, hot off the press.
So Public Works has done a great job of putting everything together, getting it all set to go. But as we're walking through the building, we're looking at a lot of dirt, a lot of debris that's going to be in the area that we want to make sure we have enough time to clean it and get everything right before we open it up and put people at risk. So if you're all mad, it's my fault. It's not theirs, it's mine. I'm not comfortable with it yet. We need some time to clean, get it all ready to go so everybody's safe. So there's only a few groups that's going to put out. It's just a couple extra days, but we're going to open it Monday, be ready to go.
All right, again, that's March 11?
March 11th, Monday.
All righty then. Okay, with all the influx of next door, surely somebody has a question. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Chet. I haven't heard anything about the Tenassi rebuild. The last report that was given at the board meeting was the same one that was given before. I don't hear anything about scheduling. I don't hear anything about activity. Nothing appears to be happening on the site. You've got a big committee looking at it. Don't hear a word.
Okay, well, I'll bring you up to date. We have gone back out and gotten some additional bids because we were concerned about pricing. And we are in the process of evaluating those bids, and should I'll go out on a limb because I don't know this is going to actually happen, but we should at the next board meeting be able to give you a specified update in terms of both cost and, if the board agrees to the cost, timing of that. So excellent question, and I apologize it's taken us a minute, but it's not been as simple to get the bids in and get these guys to organize and to give us bids back so that we could present that. Yes, sir.
There is a 1 foot of concrete having to be around all the golf carts, is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Has there been a cost breakdown of that as opposed to not having to do that?
Well, that particular feature is not because we think it's nice. It's because that's the what's the word I'm looking for? Statute that we have to have when we have lithium batteries. So that's going to be a part of every cost. Whatever we do, whatever we come up with, the final cost will have to include that.
Unless you don't put it in the same place.
Either way. Yep. Any other questions? Those are all good. If you have a question, please come up and to the mic.
Yes, I'm Mike Ryan. I've lived here for 4 years. Prior to that, I spent 26 years in campus planning and facilities. In the third quarter 2020 newsletter, some things about water the same issues came up back then, and they were solved back then. And I was wondering what happened to that, because in 2019, there was a 500,000 gallon tank that was going to be funded by the reserve funds for $1.7 million. The board took that, and in 2020, according to this, we completed negotiations for a new 20-year water service agreement with the Loudoun Utility Board. The new agreement sets standards for flows into the village and requires infrastructure investment by LUB,
That's
not
correct.
the village,
Yes.
to guarantee these flows. Better yet, it allows the POA to cancel the building of the water tank and saving $1.2 million, which now can be used for other needs. This ensures our water supply through the theoretical build-out of Tellico Village. So what happened to the 20-year agreement that guaranteed till build-out that the utilities would take care of the infrastructure?
That's an excellent question. There's at least 3 gentlemen in this room right now who can answer that better than I. Number one, because I wasn't here to be a part of all that, Mr. White would like to comment on that. But that's a very fair question, sir. There you go. Use that one. There you go.
Okay, we got this. Okay, so I was on the board during that time. What happens is the study that our Public Services Advisory Committee was doing related mainly to water volume coming into Tellico Village. We were going to put in a water tank to increase that volume, and it was going to be up off of, what is the name of that road? Poplar Springs, behind the ski-a-took where I live, and up behind Cooper Reserves, all right? It was going to cost us a lot of money. Loudoun Utilities Bureau then comes up and says, we need to improve the infrastructure in this area of the county, and they then said that they would put the water tank in, and we would put the pumps on our side so that we could measure the flow to guarantee they're giving us the volume that they said they would give us, right? They put that in. That then related to the increase in our recent water rates because of their improving infrastructure. The Public Services Advisory Committee then goes back and looks at it again and says, well, that will help the volume coming into, and for those, I almost turned around and looked, but you weren't here. Those that were here remembered that during the watering season, during the summer, the tank at the wellness center would drop to a precarious level and we couldn't get it filled back up because they could not provide us the volume. This would fix the problem. Now, I live at 304 Skiatook Circle, way up high, right? And let me find somebody. My buddy over here, he lives down by the lake. His water pressure is fabulous. He turns on the shower and he gets his daily shower blown off. I stand under the shower and it barely dribbles, right? I'm not kidding. I can turn on 8 cups of coffee in the morning under the sink. I can get a filter, get the coffee, put the old one in the trash, come back, and I've got 4 cups when it's watering season. It is drastically low. This, and if I mess up, you come up here and talk to me, okay? I'm talking to the Public Works Advisory, Public Works Manager. So, this water tank, when Public Services Advisory Committee goes out and they do the study again with Jacobs Engineering, they said this volume will not fix your pressure problem. You follow? There's a difference. They got volume coming in, but now this water tank, gravity fed, won't feed the pressure to the high points without blowing the pipes at the low points. So the study shows that we need an additional source of water to increase the pressure. We can put in a ground-based water tank, we can put in pumps at $300,000 a piece, or we can put in a raised water tank that will virtually eliminate that problem. And that's what they found. You follow?
Yeah, but I mean, the agreement was that they would take care of it.
They will take care of the volume. We won't run short of water anymore, but that doesn't take care of the pressure.
So you didn't think about it back then?
Yes, we thought about it. And once they put that water tank in, you do the study again and said how much of the pressure did they relieve, and it still wasn't adequate.
So that wasn't thought of back then,
Yes, it was thought of back then.
and it's not part of the 20-year.
It's not part of the LUB agreement, no. Not our pressure, our volume is. Is that not correct, Matt?
So that was kind of missed by the board back then?
No, it was not missed. It had to get studied again after they put the volume requirement in. Then you study and say, did that alleviate or remediate or even touch the pressure problem? There's 2 different areas here. One is volume, one is pressure.
Right, so if we would have put in a tank, if we would have put in the tank, we would have still had the problem that the board thought the tank would solve.
More than likely.
Okay. Did an engineering firm think
Jacobs Engineering, yes.
said the tank would solve the pressure problem?
Not the one in Skiatook, no. Not the one up there. The one over here says it will because it's more in the neighborhood of the village. Again, you got to remember, we've got water coming in from Monroe County, and we've got water coming in from Loudoun County. The Loudoun County feeds across the Telego Parkway and then splits and goes north and south, and then the one coming in from Monroe goes towards Lenore City, all right? All the people move into Malacca are getting from the, what's that called? TAS. They're getting it from TAS. So living up on the very north end of the village, I am subject to all of you that live south of me pulling my water into your house. So more and more people move here, more and more water gets pulled out of that system, primarily during irrigation period. And I end up putting a empty coffee urn and turning it on, and it just barely comes out.
Okay. So all the new money going in now, none of that's for volume,
It's for pressure.
just pressure. There's no new tanks or anything for volume.
No. Correct? Nothing for volume,
There's
pressure.
no new tanks?
There is a new tank that is right next to the one at the Wellness Center.
Okay,
That's
so
the one
we're
that
we're
you're
going
referring-
back to 2020, needing a new tank again. that the utility board said they take care of.
That's the one that they said they would give us volume to take care of, not pressure.
Okay.
And
So
that's,
Volume
we
at that
don't need
time-
a tank.
Volume at that time was the problem, because we couldn't fill up the tank at the wellness center because they wouldn't give us the volume. They
Okay.
could not give us the volume. They didn't have the infrastructure. They said, we'll put in a tank, we'll pay for the tank, we'll renegotiate your rates. All of Loudoun County gets involved in that.
Right.
And then you'll then have to do your study to fix your pressure.
Okay.
I have a quick question. How many people, Beth, moved into Tellico Village from 2020 till now? You can give me a guess. I'm not looking for a specific number.
I think we've added about 700 homes.
Okay. So one of the problems that we are constantly up against is people being cognizant, people meaning my staff, myself, the board, of how growth affects our infrastructure. And that is where we are having to, okay, you say it's going to do this, really? Have you considered that we're adding X number of more homes to that? How does that affect it? And those are the kinds of questions that we're currently trying to answer before we move forward so that we're sure we have a pretty good idea about where we're going to end up. And that only relates to, I need to add this so that nobody comes back and later says, well, you said it was, and I need to be clear. This only is referring to those lots that we currently have plotted. If we decide that we're going to plot out some of this other land that we've purchased, it changes the game, especially depending on their location.
Yeah, I was at the board meeting this month, and that the build-out study was very good, very well put together.
Thank you, long-range planning.
The second thing that was in that same newsletter was from Chad Johnson, who was in the utility property manager. And he said something to the case that he was going to go around, the village was going to go around and inspect all the tanks to make sure they had the same stormwater problem. And he said they were going to inspect all tanks to make sure no stormwater was going to be drained into the system. And that problem's coming up again. I don't know if we ever did it. Is there any record of us doing those inspections?
I think that the reality of inspecting those and what it really takes had not been thought about before he made that statement.
Okay.
Because to truly inspect them, they have to be dug up.
Okay, could we do an inspection like that similar to our backflow inspection?
Yes. Yes,
And
that
would-
can be done and that can be tracked. But I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of that, as an example, we have some of these tanks, and Matt, anytime you want to jump in and argue with me, please feel free. We have some that are now in the 30s of years old. And yet it just depends on where that tank sits, the ground it's in, how it ages, all of the above. If you had a house where you had 7 people living in it for 15 years, that tank's going to take a lot more beating than just a couple who lived in it. And that's just the reality of it. So those are the things that we are looking at trying to do, because you're right. We absolutely have to understand our water infiltration and what it means and how we can work with it.
Yeah, because dealing with stormwater on my campus and stuff, we actually had to pay per square foot of hard surface. But I don't think the village has that much stormwater. I think most of it goes into the lake, but that's my opinion.
This I think there are people who live on a couple other streets who might argue the point of whether it makes it to the lake or their backyard. But this is typical, and I guess I need to say this too. I've worked in several other lake communities. Every single one of them, with no exception, had drainage issues, period. I don't know if it's the topography around lakes. I don't know if it's the soil that usually is found around lakes, but every single one of them had flooding issues, had water drainage issues. Some houses had to redo their lawn twice to be able to have water go away from the house instead of into it, depending on what houses were built above. And many of them have had experiences where they were the first house on the cul-de-sac at the bottom of the hill, and the world was fine until the other 17 homes got built above them. Then the world is not so fine. So those are the challenges, and I don't mean to make light of this. It is a challenge, period. That's the uniqueness of this community. It is a challenge to manage water drainage and water infiltration system because of what we get.
Yeah, and I'd like to make sure with Loudoun County that it isn't their development of parking lots and buildings that's causing them a problem that they're now blaming on us.
Well, I'll try and not venture into that too far, but to say, I don't know the answer to that, but we can ask that question.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Chet, just real quick, I looked up the number. I looked up the number.
Yes.
Since 2020, we've added 981 homes.
That sounds a little more like it. Yes.
Chris Kruger, Chota Hills. I've read in a recent communication that plans are underway for enclosing the patio at the Wellness Center. That's news to me. Could you talk a little bit more about that and explain what's being planned?
I think our Director of Wellness would be happy to talk about that.
Face this way.
Yeah,
Right,
face
Pat?
that
Where's
way.
Pat? Where's Pat? I'll make sure he sees that. So the idea of the wellness patio was looking for a way to expand without spending lots and lots of money to do that. And it's underutilized in the back patio. So some other areas, for example, we had a racquetball court at Chota that was totally underutilized. And we look at other ways that we can use that without asking for lots of money. That was part of our strategic plan of looking at things like that. So that's what we're looking at, to be able to expand, to have more places to work out.
Places to work out, not screened-in patio for coffee after the workout, not a four-season patio. I'm just curious what you're doing.
Yeah, repeat her question, because I know nobody else heard it.
She was asking if it was for a screened-in area, if it was for places for people to get together, other areas. One of the biggest things that we need is more space for people to be able to exercise at this point. And sure, that is an option to screen in the back patio, but the problem we're trying to solve is a mass amount of people using a small facility that wasn't really built for it. And that's one way to do it, is to go out back.
You don't think we could get along with a few less treadmills?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. So get some more treadmills, you said? It'd be more for strength equipment, not cardio. We're looking for more strength equipment to go back there. That being also the trend that is very good for our demographic right now.
And are you talking about screening in that patio or glassing it in?
Glassing it in,
That's what I thought. So it will be conditioned.
yeah. HVAC, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
That's the plan. We got to get to the design stage first.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Chet. My name's Chris Offer.
How are you, Chris?
Good afternoon. I live in Tenasseee Point, and I have a couple questions, but I'll try to keep it brief. As far as I understand, you've been on board for a little over 14 months. Is that correct? About
18, but that's good.
18. Okay, see, time, I don't know.
Time flies.
All right, 18 months. When you came in, you mentioned that you were going to do a comprehensive review of all the departments, their processes, so on and so forth.
Yes.
When can we expect a comprehensive review and see what your findings were and plans going forward?
Some of that I've already talked about, but the comprehensive, to use your term, is coming out in the next month and a half as we go through. We're going to be, we are currently working on putting together something a little more standardized in terms of a business plan per department and then for the community. And as a part of that, we're going to talk about staffing, what was necessary, what isn't necessary. Some of the challenges that we've had in the past go along with keeping staff members. One of the numbers that we're evaluating right now is it is my understanding that every time, and this is from the HR group in the United States that talks about all HR companies across the United States, that every time you have an employee walk out the door for whatever reason, you've got 13 months of wages lost. And at one point in 2022, we were somewhere in the 50%, 40 to 50% range of turnover. So you can imagine the amount of dollars we're talking about going out, on average around $13,000. And so to that end, we made some changes to try and keep our staff longer. Because what it turned out being is we were training people for Loudoun County and for Knox County to work in their areas instead of staying here with us because they paid a lot more money. And so we made some changes. Well, moving forward, we need to find out and identify and qualify, more importantly, even though I can tell you that we went from in the 50s to now, this last year in 2023, it was 16% turnover. And I have to be honest, that's still not good enough. So we have a lot of dichotomy. I have people who work for me who have been here for 20 years, and in that same group, I have people who worked for me for about 7 months. So those are the things that I'm evaluating, and the number of staff has been evaluated. As an example, last year we did not change our head count at all. And that probably will even be reduced more as we move forward.
Okay. Part of my question is along the lines of, we have a tremendous amount of expenses and needs going forward with this water and sewer.
Absolutely.
Taking care of all our infrastructure, including our roads. And many things have changed and evolved in the village over the last, starting 30 years ago. We're a lot different place than we were then.
Absolutely correct.
So I'm hoping that what you're looking at is a vision to right size the POA, look for opportunities where we can make things better, maybe reduce things in certain areas and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what I'm asking for. I got another question here.
Well, to that end, I need to remark on the fact that one of the things that we're challenged with is, yes, we have infrastructures issues that are significant.
Yeah.
All kidding aside, I should say. And but we also have a huge community that already exists that has to be maintained.
Sure.
Amenities, all those things. And so there may come a point where we have to make some hard decisions about what we're willing to live without.
Yeah.
And those are coming, and we'll have to decide where we are when we get there.
Okay. Let's see here. Any news from the Tennessee Attorney General on, I think it's the
Water Authority?
Water Authority issue?
I am theoretically, I say theoretically because I haven't got a confirmation from all the parties who are involved, meeting with the Lieutenant Governor on the 22nd of March.
Wow.
And we're going to have that direct discussion.
Okay.
And that was as soon as I could get to him. Unfortunately, he's had surgery and a couple other things. So that's the plan.
Okay. Stay tuned.
Yep, stay tuned.
Okay.
Believe me, I'll give you the answer to that one as soon as I get it.
This isn't my question, but I guess there's some people who want to know, you already covered the trash pickup thing. What about the status of the signs? You kind of updated people a little bit is there any more word from, last minute on where we are with signs?
No, we're still working on them. They aren't completed by any shade of the imagination, and we're still planning about how we're going to update those as we move forward.
Okay.
It's a work in progress. It's nowhere near done.
Okay. And I just have one public service announcement to make. For those board members that are present, because of all of our costs that we got going on, I hope that you all stick with the $7 million, spend no more at Tenassie. We can have a great facility, additional parking, larger kitchen, but keep what we had, and it'll be a great facility. Let's stay within our means. Thank you.
Ron Hansen, been here for about 5 years. First a question, I received a letter from Judy Bedford dated December 1, and on the back of the letter, it had the water rates for 2024. Are those rates currently in effect?
Yes, sir, as of January 1st.
Okay. Well, you were soliciting opinion earlier. I don't envy you. But I'd like to comment on those rates just a moment. They can only be really described, in my opinion, as regressive. The charge for the first 2,000 gallons of water, and there's been a good deal of confusion about this in the community, but the charge for the first 2,000 is $19 per thousand. The charge for the gallon 2001 through 15,000 gallons is $9 per thousand. That figures out to a 53% discount for high volume usage. And the rate for 15,000 gallons to 30,000 gallons is $15 per thousand gallons, which comes out to a 33% discount. Or to look at it another way, you'd have to increase the base of people who are getting the discount 50% to make them pay the same rate for the water that they paid for the first 2,000 gallons. And I think the regressive water rate has 4 impacts on Tellico Village. Number one, it punishes or discourages water conservation because the people who use the least have to pay the most, in fact, double, in terms of the unit cost of the water. And so it discourages conservation in Tellico Village. And conservation seems to be something we have been concerned about here.
Absolutely.
With water pressure. And I never thought much about water until I came to Tellico Village, actually. And all the discussion of the recommended improvements and so forth and how much it will cost. We should encourage conservation. A second thing these rates do is they encourage profligacy. They encourage high volume water usage. I've driven past homes that have irrigation systems and they're on when it's raining outside. And I think to myself, wow, the community is paying for that. The community is subsidizing that. The people who actually use the most water pay the least amount for that water in terms of rates. Our words on the one hand say we should conserve water. You said so yourself a moment ago.
I did.
But our actions do exactly the opposite of our words. So we punish conservation, we reward profligacy or waste of water, but thirdly, there is a huge revenue stream which is being forfeited by Tellico Village by subsidizing, by giving such steep discounts to high volume usage. I did a little bit of math. If we have 6,800 households, roughly, in Tellico Village, and each household just used the minimum 2,000 gallons, that comes out to 13,600,000 per month, which comes out to 163,200,000 per year. Now, if somebody uses all 30,000 gallons, their cost under this rate system is $12.66 per 1,000 gallons, which is a 33% discount off of everybody who pays for the first 2,000 gallons. And if everybody paid $19 per gallon, if you calculated at 163,200,000 gallons, just raise it $1 or $2 per 1,000 gallons, my calculation is you could bring in 1.2 million in the first year just by making the rates equal. A third thing, in that sense, it's a self-inflicted wound because we've been selling water at less than its cost to especially the highest volume users in our community. And finally, and I think this is most important, I certainly feel this way. I wonder how a decision like this could be made. It creates questions in the decision-making process. It creates in me a lack of confidence in how such a decision could be made. I would like for a moment to use an analogy with gasoline. If I can spend $200,000 or $250,000 on an RV that gets 5 miles per gallon, and my neighbor drives an SUV that gets 30 miles per gallon, it would be expected that I can pay the same rate at the gasoline pump as he does, even though I need more gasoline. But if I had a bunch of friends who controlled the price of gasoline, and we decided to double the cost of gasoline for all the SUV, fuel-efficient 30-mile-per-gallon vehicles in Tellico Village so that the people who own RVs can get their cost cut in half, they could probably hear the screaming about that all the way in Nashville. There's something inherently wrong with that decision, in my opinion. Whenever a government authority artificially manipulates the price of a commodity to benefit a particular group of consumers, that almost inevitably hurts a different group of consumers. And that is what's happening in Tellico Village right now. I think, I know there are those who subscribe to this idea that the village at large, the many must subsidize certain amenities for the few to attract a wealthy clientele because it's good for home values. I would submit that we've talked about a water authority, which may make it easier to borrow money at a better interest rate or even get grants. That divorces the cost of water from the user of water. And when you break that connection, that's when we're running deficits. We're in a hole right now because that connection between the user and the price has been broken. Special assessments, which have also been discussed, also put the burden of the high water usage. It puts the subsidy, the discounts for high volume water, it puts that burden on the entire community when they are not the ones doing the using. And also a transfer tax puts the burden on the community at large when they're not the ones doing the using. A quick proposed solution, everyone pay the same rate, no matter what rate that is, everyone pay the same rate for usage regardless of the quantity used. And they should pay enough to cover the actual cost. Things like electric vehicles or golf courses or water, I don't think deserve subsidies from the community at large. Just have the users pay the cost of what they're actually using.
Sure. Well, I rather than go into a long discussion, I believe Judy's going to answer some of your questions, but just on the math that you gave me, I think there's some problems with what you've done because my entire budget, including everything for this year, is only $40 million. So to come up with $100 and something million that I have somehow not reported on is kind of an issue for me.
No, I didn't say $100 million. It was 163,200,000 gallons, and that's priced in a per 1,000 gallon. I said if you raise the price from the 1264, which a 30,000 gallon is using, and you multiply that by 6,800 households over the course of the year, it would raise $1.2 million. And that's a conservative figure because a lot of households use more than 2,000 gallons,
Sure.
including mine.
Sure.
I didn't say anything about 100 million
Okay,
gallons.
well, I misunderstood you and I apologize. That's my intent is to say, let Judy give you some explanations here because I still think that there's some disconnect in terms of how this is functioning.
Yeah, I'm going to just restate kind of what you said, and I'm not sure if I was following all of it, but everyone pays the same rate for the first 2,000 gallons, up to 2,000 gallons. If you use 1 gallon, if you use 2,000 gallons, you pay $38. And then there is a different bracket for the next 3,000 gallons that gets you up to 5,000 gallons. That's $9. So you do get there is a smaller rate on that next 3,000 gallons. And then so on and so on for the rate brackets that you mentioned. We pay $3.50 per 1,000 gallons to LUB, $3.50. None of our rates are less than $3.50. Our lowest rate for 3,000 up to 5,000 is $9. So there's always a margin on all of the water that is sold. And the water sewer does operate, we shoot for a 68% gross margin on the cost of water, and that's the industry standard to use to cover our operating expenses for the water sewer department, if you will, and then also to contribute towards the infrastructure, repairs and maintenance, and future projects.
Judy, I got a question. When we say we're paying $9 for the next 2,000?
It's from 0 to 2,000 is $38.
Right.
And then from 2001 up to 5,000, it is $9 per 1,000. And then beyond that, it goes up to $15
Per 1,000.
I have it
and
right
then
on the back
yeah,
of
I'm
the
sorry.
sheet.
Yeah, there's a little structure, but everybody does pay the same amount of money for that first 2,000 gallons used. Is that?
Well, that's what it says. First
Yes.
2,000 gallons, $38, which comes to 19.
Yes, and
That's what I
everybody
said.
pays that.
Next 13,000, 9.
Correct.
9.
Okay.
So why
I'm
would I
sorry, we did
conserve
combine that
water
into one.
if I can reach the 2,001 gallon limit and get a 53% discount?
On just that 1 gallon. Everybody pays $38 for the first 2,000 gallons.
But gallon 2001 through 14,999
Costs
receives a
$9 per
53% discount.
Yep,
That's what's on the back of the letter
$9
here, and that's
per
why I asked if it was accurate. That is a huge and steep high-volume discount. Businesses produce high-volume discounts when they have excess inventory, but we don't have excess inventory, or it's cheap stuff and they just want to get rid of it and get some money back. But water is not cheap, and we don't have excess inventory. It's limited resource, commodity,
Correct.
and it's expensive. And so it's the high-volume discounts that I have a problem with. If I get 2,000 gallons and I pay my 38, by the way, I was in Florida in December, I only used 1,000 gallons, I still paid 38. Okay,
correct.
that's the minimum. So really, I'm paying $38 for 1,000 gallons, and somebody who uses the next 13,000 gallons pays 9.
No, they pay 38 plus $9 times
Per 1,000.
per 1,000 gallons over 2,000.
From gallon
Okay.
2001 to gallon
Correct,
1499. I understand that perfectly.
Okay.
I did the math. That's a 53% discount. That's a steep discount. And that subsidy, basically, you have the people who use the least are subsidizing
It's-
very high volume water usage.
Well, it's not a subsidy, but the profit margin is reduced. We are paying $3.50 per 1,000, and then we're charging $9 per 1,000.
Why would we not charge everybody proportionally? If somebody uses 15 times more water than I do, at 30,000 gallons and I use 2, why isn't their bill 15 times higher?
Mr. Pat's going to come and see if he can help me with an explanation. Okay.
Maybe there's something I'm not understanding.
Right, so here's my question. I pay what for the first, come on, hey, I pay $38. So I use 2,000 gallons of water and I use 38. I know what your number is.
know what's on it?
Yeah. Then I pay what for the next?
Per 1,000.
Add 38 and 9. How much do I pay?
47.
I pay 47. Now add the next.
It goes all the way up to 14,000 gallons.
It's additive. It's not if I use 2,000, I go to 2001, I get a discount, I get added to.
Well, yes, it's added to the first 2,000.
And then it's added to. So the idea is these people that are filling up 8 swimming pools a day are paying maximum from the 0 all the way up to the maximum, and they're dying. Do they call you? Oh, yeah, because their water bill went through the roof. Thousands of dollars.
We have folks that are using 40,000 gallons, and I would argue that they don't feel they're getting much of a discount.
It's additive, sir.
I know there are high usages.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the people who use the least pay the highest rates, and our policies encourage profligacy, and they discourage conservation. Because if I can hit 2001, I'm going to cut my water costs in half per gallon, per 1,000 gallons, for the next 13,000 gallons. That's incredible discount. And all of us who don't use 15,000 gallons of water are actually paying double, 111%, if you do the calculation, over somebody who gets that 13,000 gallons at $9. And we don't even raise the rates for over 30,000 except $1 on a basis of 19, which comes out to 5.3%. When somebody goes over 30,000, we're encouraging the use of high-volume water here. And there's just no getting around that fact. And that's what troubles me. Okay, we're manipulating the cost of a commodity so that the monies collected in the use of that commodity do not cover the cost. And so we want to transfer the extra cost, which is not covered, to the general community at large, who are not the ones using that. Thank you.
Again.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Hi, John Orr. I was on the board. I was on FAC when we first looked at rates in 2022. And at that time, you actually got a discount the more you used. So it started out at like $6 a 1,000, went to $3, went down to $2 if you got over 15,000 gallons. So we really discounted and incentivized high usage. And I want to clarify that in that $38, there's like a, I don't know the exact number, a $26 connection fee. That's why the first chunk of water is so high, because there's a connection fee. It's called ready to serve fee that's in that initial rate. So that's the cost to actually provide that connection to your house, provide the pressure for you to use, and then from that $26 or $28 to the $38 is the actual cost of water. So it's not, you can't just take the 38, divide by 2 and say it's $19 per 1,000, because you got to take that connection fee out of that calculation. So in 23, we changed the whole formula to disincentivize high volume users by charging them more the more they used, as opposed to charging them less the more they used. And this go around actually steepened that curve from where we changed it in 23. So in 24, the curve got steeper.
And John, what's the percentage of people who are using 2,000, or let's just use another number, 2,500? I know you did a study on this.
It was roughly 80% of households use less than 3,000 gallons. The average is 2,800 gallons for the entire village. And that's, I'm referring to, you know, the full year. Some people are gone in the winter, so it, you know, it factors all that in. But it's really 2,800 is the average usage.
And I would add that the community is encouraged to maintain their lawns and to irrigate their grass and maintain the beauty of the community as well. And there are actually, there's a fraction of you out there that actually think you're already paying too much when you have to use the extra water for living not on the lake, while the people on the lake are able to irrigate from the water coming from the lake if they have the generators. So for every argument, there's also a counter argument out there. But I appreciate your time and concern.
Thought.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chet. My name is Tom. Been in the village for between 5 and 6 years. No complaints about the water bills yet. When we initially moved here, I believe that we got a discount for the amount of watering that we did to irrigate the lawns because it was not being treated as sewage. And the last time I asked, I believe that that was not the case anymore.
That is my understanding, that water is, your sewage bill is calculated on the water you use, whether it is irrigation or not. Yeah, it's capped at 5,000. If you use more than 5,000, they don't charge you an additional sewer fee beyond that.
Okay, that answers my question.
So,
Okay,
got it.
great, thank you.
So to the gentleman's other question that I think is not being clear, and it took me a minute, so I apologize to catch up, is that there is a fee, as John pointed out, within that original fee that is built in there for maintaining all the systems. You're paying a fee for us to be able to maintain your tanks for you. All of those things are built into that. So it's not that we've taken and incentivized people to use more water. It's that there is a base fee in that first 30-something dollars that has nothing to do with the water fee, the water specific you're using. And so you're right. If you just took that and divided it by the gallons, there is a huge difference, but that's not the way that number works. That number is actually significantly less. But the reason it's built into the top end is everybody who's connected has to carry that same weight of fee. So your analogy of using gas doesn't quite play into that because it's not clean. This is not a clean analogy with the base fee, including many other things that have nothing to do with water cost specific. Thank you. Go ahead. I appreciate, and I mean this sincerely, I appreciate the fact that you took the time to think this through and work with the math, because not everybody does, and I appreciate that.
Good afternoon, Chet. Sean Talent. This summer will be 4 years here as a proud villager. I'm leading up to a point, but first of all, thanks for what you're doing and the POA is doing, because it is not easy, and your point at the very beginning is correct. You cannot please everyone. You can't even try to. I've commanded many things in the military. I've led executive leadership in industry and 501c organizations. I go into every one of them with the idea that 10% aren't going to like the decision. They got friends, so there's 20% right there. So you're spot on with that conversation. I'm going to ask, and the message is, for the POA to continue to do what I believe they're doing, which is not to lose the identity of this village. And what I mean by that, and I'm going to step to one of the items that you had listed there. Maybe it's because you were hoping we wouldn't bring it up, but I don't color well inside the lines. And that has to do with the pets. This village has all these amenities. We got hikers, we got golfers, we got boaters, we have all these things here, and not everybody does it, and there's going to be people who are going to say, we spend too much money to maintain those golf courses.
Yes.
Or any other things here. There's always a minority, okay? And we cannot let the minority voices change the identity of this village, because that's what makes it great, okay? And I'm going to tell you, I've been a boater for my life. I'm retired Navy. I grew up in lakes in Wisconsin, and I've yet to ever be in a marina where I could drive up a boat and I couldn't get off, put a cover on for my women folks there. Let's think hygiene. We've been out all day. Bring your boat up, bring your dog up, get a bucket of water or whatever else like this, and we are a boating community, all right? And I understand that someone got hurt. Someone can get hit with a golf ball and get sued too. Correct. So my point of this is, don't let the voice of the few change the identity of who we are. We're a golfing community. We're a retirement community. We have those who aren't retired here. We're a boating community, and we should allow that and not become California where the voices of few start dictating the others out there. So I say that with all honesty. I believe in what we're doing here, and I hope that you take the message back to the board that continue to do what you're doing through the lens of our identity. And I'm proud to be a villager, and I'm a golfer, and I'm worried about the slippery slope. If we allow what I think could happen, which is we make a decision to say, oh, we'll be the only marina in Tennessee that doesn't allow you to bring dogs up to the outside. That's what I'm talking about. Wow. How many people have ever seen the 20 golfers, men or women, come off? Maybe they've been sweating, or for the women, perspiring heavily in the afternoon, and they come into Tenasseee when it comes back, or Toqua or whatever else. I just imagine the slippery slope where someone's gonna, I'm kind of offended by the hygiene of those people. We shouldn't let them in here. It's the same analogy, so thank you.
I appreciate your comments, sincerely. One of my challenges, if I may, is to, and been my goal since I walked in the door here, is to not change the culture, but uplift the culture to maintain the identity, and that's the word he used, and I like it, of Tellico Village. We are completely and totally unique. And it is sometimes a fight to maintain that. And that's a difficult task. And so I agree 100% that we don't want to lose our identity, and we don't want to lose it in the process of doing, quote unquote, something good. But as I said earlier, I have to manage to the 10,000, not the 10. Yes, sir.
I'm part of the 10.
Attaboy. And by the way, I don't color in the lines very well either. Go ahead.
My name's Barry Coro. I live in Tomotley Coves. Just a quick question for you, Chet. The $31 million that was presented as us having to deal with the exception of Kahidi, I believe it dealt with pumps. Am I correct in that?
I'm sorry?
It dealt with pumps, either replacement or addition of pumps?
It dealt with two different topics. It dealt with a sewer, it includes a pump upgrade. It includes a sewer holding tank down at our Sequoia facility there, and it includes a high water tank.
Okay. So my question is, has a study been done, or will you do a study regarding the infrastructure itself, the lines, the sewage lines, the water lines, because we're 37 years into the first construction and the infrastructure was put in. And of course, that was done in phases as different subdivisions opened up. But $31 million is probably just the tip of the iceberg of what we're going to be facing down the road when these infrastructure lines begin to deteriorate. And are we looking at this long-range planning, looking at having to replace that in a time frame to do it, or strategically, are we just going to address disruptions such as breaks and so forth and go along that way?
Wow, I love that question. I just have to tell you.
I'm glad I could deliver it.
So whether I live through it or not is another story, but I love that question. And I'll tell you why, because you bring up the concern that I have had since I understood, and I have to really qualify that, since I understood our water and sewer infrastructure. Your point is well taken, because in my head, we have two choices. We can be proactive and start taking care of things in a timely fashion, schedule them out over a period of time so that we are not fixing things only when they break. Because sooner or later, they're going to break, and fixing them will be catastrophic. It will not be trivial. And so I completely concur that that's a piece of this pie. And to the answer to your question bluntly, 31 million doesn't cover it.
Yeah, that was my concern, because when you're making a decision in terms of whether we go to a water authority or not,
yes,
I think we ought to understand what's beyond the $31 million.
Correct.
So we can help make a decision.
Well, part of our reserve study points that out to us, and that's one of the things that we've used. That's what she's hollering at me, reserve study. But the truth of the matter is all of those things are being looked at. I know that long-range planning has that in their schedule, and one of you guys want to talk about that, you're welcome to. But in all cases, we have to be cognizant of the fact that there is no silver bullet. Right. All of these are steps, all of them. Putting in those tanks and that septic tank are steps in the right direction that are going to take care of us. But even though we may have reached our, did you say it was 85% build out? Is that a yes or no? 80? 83 and change build out. Then we are at the top end. And by the way, just to throw this out for your contemplation, We have very few lots left to be sold. Now, what does that mean? That means we are at the top of our income from assessments. That's it. We're almost at a flat line for our income from assessments. So as we look at the financing of this community, all the other things that we gather funds from become key, because we're never going to get that much more money out of assessments because they're flat. We can't say we're going to get 900 more homeowners that will increase that. They're not, there's no place for them to come from. So keep that in mind as we begin to evaluate these funds and what we do and how we do it and why we do it. It is key that we, as I said a long time ago, the train is coming and we're going to hit that cliff where we have to make some hard decisions, and I would like to make those decisions in stages rather than at a point where it's, oh my God. Yes, sir.
In the meeting last week,
yes,
they were speaking about the reserve and how it has grown, I think in the last 10 years from, is it 4 million to 14 or something like that?
2018, I believe, till now.
Okay. Is there a projection at being created to see what it will be in another 10 years?
Yes. So what we've done, and our reserve study does this, and I'll say this, and if I go astray here, guys, you can correct me. The reserve study is designed to where we can do modeling. We can say, okay, if this happens, what's the cost going to be in the future? And then within the reserve study, there's a number. They assume that we're going to have somewhere around 4% increases over the years, each year, a 4% increase.
In the reserve or in
the reserve study now. We're talking about the reserve study. These are the things that it assumes. And so then, and at the point the reserve study was done, they went out and looked at all of our amenities and made decisions about their value, how long they're going to last, all of those things. And they put them down, and then we went back in, and some of their ideas, to be blunt, were a little off. We will never, ever replace an entire golf course in itself, ever. We just won't. So we may replace a green. We're never going to replace the fairways. We may mow them, but we're not going to replace them. And so those are things that we had to balance out within the reserves. So to your point, every year there's a mile marker that says this year all of these things are scheduled to be rebuilt, repaired, taken care of in some way. And that total equates to this much money you should already have in the bank. So as we move forward, there's always that number that we work toward. You've heard the board say that right now the reserve balance needs to be, we need to be bringing in between $8 and $10 million a year in reserves. That's from the reserve study. And that's what we've been using as our benchmark as we move forward. And every year it's going to vary. What I mean by that is that this year we may have projects that are already scheduled. Well, next year, because of age, because of timing, there is no real big project going on. So the reserves needing to go into the reserves for that year may be less. And the year after that, we may have millions of dollars that need to be spent, and the reserves will need to be more. And so what we try and do is balance that, so we aren't up and down and up and down. We're trying to keep that value, so when we hit that, we need a bunch of money to take care of stuff, we've already got it accumulated.
But you don't know at this point what the $18 million figure will be next year, the year after?
Well, it depends on what we spend out of it.
What now?
It depends on what we spend out of it.
Okay.
Our intent is to constantly grow that. That is the intent.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the budget online on the finance page, it shows 5 years out, what we expect to collect and what we expect to spend estimated. And then we true it up every year as we get into that next budget season.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Chet. Tim Kukla. Question about the food services. Is there a way like we can do in golf where if you live here, you get a discount and outsiders maybe pay more? And do we want a big outside crowd coming to the marinas, whether it be Tenasseee or the yacht club in the future, because all the boating places are very crowded for lunches and live bands going, certainly on the weekends.
So I'll answer this question in 2 stages. Excellent question, by the way. The first one is, please let us get our feet underneath this before we start making decisions about what we're going to charge and not charge. This is like month number 2. And so we're really trying to get that nailed out. We do not project ourselves as a private community, so to speak. So for me to tell you that we're going to be able to limit the number of outside people coming to our restaurants is kind of a lie. We will not. And in fact, the more that people find that we have good food and good service and a lot of those things, you're going to find that we're going to have lots of visitors from the outside. Tenasseee, in its old days, and again, forgive me when I say this because I'm speaking from hearsay, it made more money than all the other restaurants together because everybody came from the outside. So keep that in mind as we talk about that. That's always going to be the case. It's never going to end that we keep that unless we decide, and you can talk to Rarity Bay about how they feel about that, that you make it entirely private. You bet. Yes, sir.
And at the board meeting on that subject, you can sign up for a card, like a frequent buyer card. That's where they're going to start with the discounts. So.
Sure, and we are working on that kind of a process, but like I said, we don't know where we are yet. We're just getting our legs, and this is anecdotal, I'll say that at the gate, but I make it a point to eat at all our restaurants every month. And it has been my good fortune, I would like to say, that all of our restaurants are packed. There's just a lot of people getting out and utilizing the restaurants. And in my head, that's a good thing because all that money comes back to you. That's the beauty of eating at our restaurants, is that you're paying back into the pie. All of that money that goes to support that isn't going in somebody else's pocket, it's coming here. Go ahead, you had another question? Sorry.
The gentleman that talked about the irrigation discount,
yeah.
I've designed and installed hundreds of irrigation systems, and just about all of them have the deduct meter.
Absolutely.
Where you don't pay sewer on anything on the irrigation. And it made me think of Loudoun County.
Yes.
How do they gauge our sewer amount going out? Because that's very different than our water coming in.
Absolutely correct. They have a limit on it, 5,000 gallons?
We charge for 5,000 gallons of sewer.
Okay, yeah, I think we eat part of that, but go ahead.
Matt, Judy, whoever, both of y'all can come up here together.
This is why I have them come, because I got people working with me a lot
it's
smarter
going to be,
than I
there's
am.
meters, right, that measure the quantity of sewage going out? That's a math question.
So there's actually flow meters going out.
As she said, there's a meter.
Okay.
Just wanted to confirmation from the proper channel there.
And to that point, I need to be clear that Loudoun County does not distinguish between irrigation water and water used. I realize that many counties do. Loudoun County happens not to be one of them. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, with respect to food and beverage and the discussion about whether or not we should allow dogs at our restaurants.
Yes, ma'am.
If the decision should go that, yes, we're going to continue to allow pets, dogs in our restaurants, I hope serious consideration will be given to requiring that the pet owner hold us harmless, the residents harmless, in the event that their dog misbehaves and somebody trips over a leash or they bite someone. Personally, I mean, the one incident that we have had, thankfully, there's only been one, but my understanding is it was basically a non-resident. Their pet is the one that bit a staff member.
Absolutely correct.
So there is a distinct probability that we residents are going to be on the hook for paying, whether it be lawyers' fees, you know, a buyout of the person, a payoff for their medical bills, what have you. So I'm not comfortable just saying, well, if we're going to continue letting pets here, that we residents are going to assume that responsibility.
I think it is only prudent and this is, I would like to say this is the gospel according to Chet, but it's not. There's other people who agree with this in terms of legally speaking. It would not be prudent of us to not put something in place that holds us harmless.
Correct, okay.
Based on dogs being there, whether we agree to allow pets there or not. That is a change that will have to be made clear
Okay, good.
for that to happen.
Okay.
You knew I would say something, right? Susan Gingrich. I watched the board meeting, and I have questions and concerns that I'm going to put in writing because I prefer to get my answers back in writing. Beth, I'm not a high-tech person. I'm going to email you the document, and it might have attachments to my attachment, okay? But the one thing I'm very curious about, and Chet, I know you can't answer this. How did AT&T get such a foothold in Tellico Village? I mean, I do remember from previous board meetings about the POA wanting some kind of legal agreement with AT&T, but among other people that are unhappy with AT&T, we have not had good service with our landline from AT&T. We have our cable, our internet. You know, they stand to make a lot of money from Tellico Village.
They do.
And I would like to know how this all started. Was there an RFP, an RFI? You know, what was the process that got them here?
Well, this is actually a more entertaining question than you might think. AT&T for many years has believed that they have perpetual right to right-of-ways in any community, anywhere, under any conditions, because there's a law in Tennessee that says they have that right to put in telegraph and telephone wires. So if all of you in your community, as you ride around, you'll see these little green things that stick up this high. Those are all AT&T copper lines, most of which do not work. Now, in terms of what AT&T and the community is negotiating, is for them to bring fiber in where there isn't cable, and to replace the cable with fiber. They actually don't have a big foothold here. Spectrum is the power dog in terms of internet service and TV service currently in Tellico Village, and they do pay. AT&T wanted to come in and not do that, and we educated them on what the law really said. And so we went round and round, and they finally came back and said, yes, we will pay to play. And right now, we are negotiating, finalizing this deal, and they have their own opinions. There is a point where they may say, look, we aren't going to do this anymore. We're taking all our infrastructure and we're going home. And that may be the choice they make. But to be fair to our community and what they're going to get from us, they need to pay a fee. And so that's where we are in the negotiations right now. Now, they do not have, they probably have maybe, I'm going to say 15 to 20% of the community, and I think that's probably generous. Spectrum usually is driving the boat everywhere else. So if you have AT&T, you're in that unique area that has it. But in terms of copper wiring for homes, they are the ones who laid the copper in here years and years and years and years ago.
Okay, let me just explain our experience. We have not had our landline for a month at a time, and it turned out that they weren't taking care of the boxes, and a mouse or something got in the box and chewed the wires. Now, they did give us a rebate, okay? But as far as we have cable, you know, we're used to cable.
Sure.
we've had so many problems with it. And they came out, and what they told us was that they wanted everybody to go to direct TV and nobody to have boxes anymore. But the older people in Tellico Village put up such a fuss about changing that there are no new boxes. They are refurbishing old boxes to try to please people in this village. And for us, DirecTV doesn't have as many channels as we currently have.
DirecTV is, they own it, but that's an altogether different argument. And the POA can't really tell you what you can and cannot have in your own personal home. The only thing that we were reaching for is we would love to have good fiber service throughout the village. It's a benefit to all the homeowners. And as we mentioned earlier, we have 900 and something new homeowners, and I guarantee you those people are not in their 80s. These are younger people moving into the community who still want that kind of service. As you said, cable, all the other things that go along with that. And so that's the reason why we're trying to negotiate that. We could go into a whole discussion about Starlink if you really wanted to, but that's not our gig. That's not what we do.
When we first moved here, we didn't have much choice. It was either going to be Spectrum or AT&T.
Sure.
It's just I don't want them destroying the village with what they're. You talked about it at the board meeting. The things that can happen, and
absolutely, and that's part of our contract with them too as well.
Thank you.
You bet. Yes, sir.
Okay, my bona fides are, I've been in the village since '97.
Yes.
And I'm on the other side on the AT&T. I had the fiber. It's fantastic.
Yep.
It's less expensive than Spectrum is.
Yep.
And I had no issues. Of course, I cut the cable too, so I don't have DirecTV or anything like that. The second thing I'm bringing up is on the dog issue. I've had dogs my entire time that I've been here, and I enjoy going to Tallahassee with dogs, going to Toke with the dogs. I understand exactly, and I feel for the person that got injured, but to my best knowledge, this is the first time since I've been here that we've had an issue like this in one of the restaurants. So I'm just cautioning on a knee-jerk reaction.
I couldn't agree more. That's why I'm saying, at the very least, whatever decision we make, we have to protect the POA.
Exactly.
And all the other homeowners.
And I had a business for 20 years, so I understand if you put up the proper signage, if you put up the proper, as far as letting people know that they are responsible.
Sure. Understood.
Not sure that's not a cure-all, but I'm just saying.
No, I agree. And again, I want to remind everybody, if you have another opinion like the few who have come up here, please send it to a help spot so that we can accumulate that and make some decisions from that, if you would, please. Well, if there's no one else, thank you guys for coming, and thank you for your comments and your input. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.